In this episode of the Texas Private School Podcast, are the days of Dallas Christian dominance finished? Is Dallas First Baptist even better this year? Is Rose Hill going to finally turn the corner? And will Lake Country Christian be the favorites in the Division III North? All this and more in the Division III, Division IV preview of the Texas Private School Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the final preview episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. As always, I am 1/3 of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. I guess not as always. I was a quarter last week, but as usually, I am 1/3 of your hosting crew. Ryan Schroeder and Walker Lott call in from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and College Station, Texas, respectively, while I call in from the heart of Dallas, Texas. Ryan Schroeder, we have finally reached the end of the previews, which correspondingly means the beginning of the Texas private school football season. Very shortly, within the next week, we will have our week one preview, which doesn't feel real to say. How does it feel to look at a very interesting shakeout in the smaller divisions and TAPPS, and also your excitement level moving into the season?
No, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I'm more excited. I've almost amped myself up more this year than I feel like I've ever amped myself up for. It's been a summer. It's been a pretty fun summer too. But overall, I'm just ready to get back into it. This next week's gonna be a lot of fun. Me and Wes being on site next Friday. It feels right in the thick of it. The weather's changing, everything. So I'm so glad we've been able to go through all these previews. Appreciate all the support so far. Yeah, let's knock out D3 and D4 today as well.
I know it's a fun time. Walker Lott, I've gotten some texts from people that consistently watch our episodes, and they're like, y'all feel like old pros at this point. I'm not trying to
Mm.
gas us up, but it's like we're just three dudes talking shop, and it seems like it comes across that way. I really enjoy it that way because I think this is always what we wanted the podcast to turn into. But same question as I posed to Ryan. Your thoughts looking into Division III and Division IV, and also the excitement, the palpable tenacity almost as we move into the 2025 season.
I mean, like we've always said, this entire preview season is it's a lot of parity, a lot of excitement, a lot of chaos about to come down. And so we're 1 week away from that chaos actually ensuing. So a lot of great matchups and the first couple weeks, and I'm excited to see how they continue.
Absolutely. No, and I'm incredibly excited about this preview specifically because there's so much change. Walker, this goes back to when we were just talking at the water cooler at Tap State 7-on-7, thinking, what is Division Three specifically going to look like? We were like, okay, DC loses everyone, Holy Cross loses everyone,
Yep.
Lubbock Christian loses a lot, although they retain some key pieces. And those are your three major players in Division Three. So that makes us do a little bit of homework and think, okay, how much are these teams actually bringing back? And then the teams that have fallen not to the bottom, but in the middle of the pack that are just don't get as much shine because they're smaller divisions. What are they bringing to the table? And can they overthrow these long, deep, rooted, established powers? And that is what we're going to cover in this episode. So we're going to start and get right into it with TAPPS Division Three, looking at District One. The outlook from last year, we have Lubbock Christian, who went 4-0 in district, who were state semifinalists. We have Lake Country Christian, who went 2-2. We had Colleyville Covenant, who went 3-1, also state semifinalists. Pantego Christian, who went 1-3, and Trinity Christian Willow Park, who went 0-4, winless in district. So just an overlook. We'll start with Lubbock Christian. Lubbock Christian obviously went 10-2, state semifinalists. They're going to lose Welker Horn, which is far and away the best player on that team, in my opinion, which hurts, obviously, but it's more about who they retain in wide receiver 6'2", 190 Keaton Lee, who just tore it up this summer. It seems like every clip we saw from 7-on-7, he's mossing someone when we got to watch him. He also performed very well. 6'2" Cooper Carthel leaves Lubbock Christian, which is going to hurt. But then also they bring back stud running back Day Atkins at 6'3", 200 as a senior. So some of the big pieces return, and also They bring in the offensive player of the year in the district, senior quarterback Jason Fleming from Colleyville Covenant, which is huge. An interesting point is they only bring back five defensive starters, and you wonder if that's enough continuity to get by. In my opinion, I think it will be in this district just because there are some other teams that I think will make a push. But Walker, as we start with Lubbock Christian, who I think is still going to be the favorite to win this district, I'm curious to see your outlook on the Eagles and if you share the same opinion that they should be at the top of this district.
No, yeah, I think they should be. If you had to project it right now, I think they absolutely should be a part of it. The Fleming Lee combination is going to be awesome. I know you lose Cooper Carthel, who was one of the kind of bright spots going into next year, but I think their relationship and Cooper was there, or sorry, Jason was there at the start of the like late spring, right into the summer, and they've had this whole summer to build that relationship. And you have their best receiver coming back there, plus one of the top quarterbacks last year that was still kind of getting into in his zone, and you have a quarterback guru, right? And the coach over there. So I think it's a recipe for success. Very excited about Lubbock Christian, especially we'll talk about in a second more about DC, how in the world are they going to look next year. I think this is maybe the time where Lubbock Christian, they lose a lot last year, but I think this might be the time where they can maybe get over the hump and make it back to Waco.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Ryan, and as you mentioned, Chris Softly also is just a fantastic coach. We talk so much about how important these figureheads of the sport are when they're at these respective schools. Softly's a guy that he's 80, he's head coach. He's somebody that does it all. And I think his ability to build the program and get it to the point that it has been says a lot, regardless of the athletes he has around him. And guess what? There are still some really fantastic athletes. Ryan, Lubbock Christian, I think, is going to be in the driver's seat in District 1. I'm curious to think if to hear actually if you hold a similar opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team, according to what I could find, this is a team who hasn't had a negative record since like 2014, 2015. This is a team that consistently goes 10 and 2, whatever the number is, 11 and 3. I've seen a couple times. Like Lubbock Christian hasn't had a bad year in over 10 years. So what's to think now that even with, Horn out and a couple other guys out. Like, what is there to think that this team isn't going to be near at least the top of this district, if not the top of this division once again? Obviously, they made the jump up to D3. Was probably like, what, last year, a couple years ago. So this is they've proven that they can even win at this level as well. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Coach Softly, as well as the rest of that staff, can get another winning season, as well as not another 10-win season. To be honest with you, this is what Lubbock Christian does. They're set to face that same slate of non-district schedule with that whole public school schedule. So I'm interested to see how honestly if they could go for another 10-win season.
Yeah, definitely so. That's a brief overview in terms of Lubbock Christian. Again, we talk so much about program pedigree, and even though a lot of that was built in Division Four, I think that it seamlessly translates to Division Three, and they've proven,
Hmm.
especially last year, they were a hair away from knocking off Dallas Christian in the semi. So they, a flip of the coin, they could very easily have been the state champions
Yes.
from last year. You bring back established coaching, you bring in a guy like Fleming, bring back a guy like Lee and Adkins. I think they are still right there in the mix and very competitive, if not one of the favorites to win this division. But I want to turn to a team that really has caught my eye, especially with returning production. That's going to be Lake Country Christian. Lake Country is funny to me just because they're not funny, but I almost always get them confused with Country Day. And I've got to remember, okay, which team is, because they're both the Eagles. It's like, which team is the
No,
SBC
they're
3A
not.
team?
They're not. Country Day's the Falcons.
No.
Oh,
I'll
it's a
give
bird
I'll
of
give it
prey.
to
It's the
you. I'll
same
give it to
thing.
you. Same colors, same area, same kind of level of size of school. I mean, I could see it. I could see it.
I guess I'm from
Again,
Fort Worth, so I know the difference, but I get
right.
your
That's
point.
that's
I get
that's
I get
fair.
your
From
point.
from a dumb hick outsider from East Texas, I've always got to pause for at least a second. After doing this preview, I'm now well established, and I think I'll go into the season remembering very well. But in years past, I've always see that. I'm like, okay, especially on the spaces when we bring them up, I'm gonna be like, okay, which one's a D3 team, which one's the SVC 3A team. But that being said, in terms of returning production, they bring back 16 starters around that
Wow.
from a state quarterfinalist team last year, which is massive. Among those are senior quarterback Timmy Wright, the formerly of Fort Worth Christian, who's 6'2", 180, 2,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. Also, senior Ryan Whites from a football legacy family, 900 receiving yards, 17 receiving touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I mean, it's the reincarnation of Hayden Whites. I don't know what else you want me to say. It's just a fantastic do-it-all Swiss Army knife athlete. Also, offensive lineman and defensive end Max Smiley, who had 12 sacks this year, just eye-popping. And then also rising junior wide receiver Colt Dobbs, who is 6'2", seems to have caught Walker's eye from some Twitter film and some scrimmages last week. So, Walker, I Covenant Christian, we'll get to them in a second. They finished second and made it to the state semifinals last year. And to the untrained eye, people might just want to slot them back into that number 2 spot. I'm going to push back on that a little bit and think that there's a good chance that Lake Country Christian can take that. From what we're seeing with returning production and star athletes like Wright, White, Smiley, and Dobbs, do you think that's a fair assumption that Lake Country can really move up and take that number 2 spot?
I definitely think so. They're always very competitive in Division 3. You know, they always kind of take the lump, the the jumps here and there to kind of beat some big teams here and there. Um, and they always have some guys that step up into the ranks. You remember, if you know geography for 5 seconds, Lake Country is not really in Fort Worth, right? So if you look at a map, right, Fort Worth, Country Day, TVS is like all down here. They're up here, like they're near like kind of Keller area, so they're Lake Worth, Azle. They're kind of by themselves in an area. So for transfers from over there, all really can, for private school education, really is there or Azle Christian that's 6 man. So they're able to get a lot of guys. So that probably should help them going into the season if they have a guy or two that comes in. But Timmy Wright's a great player. From what I've heard from TAPPSCon and other places, that he looks the part, he looks ready to go for this season. Did great at the retreat for us. So yeah, I think this is a big season for him. I think he could be an OPOY candidate in Division 3 this year. And Ryan Whites, man, if you know anything about the Whites family, it's a recipe for success there, and it's a senior Ryan Whites. I remember watching, trying to figure out if we wanted to invite him to the retreat. I watched like a minute and a half of his huddle clip. I went, yeah, that's all I needed to see. So, and Colt Dobbs, 6'2" wide receiver, he's a sophomore. I mean, that's a recipe for success for him, having another weapon. Very excited about Lake Country. I think Colleyville, we'll talk about them in a second. Colleyville looks good, and they still have things that can make successful for them this year. But Lake Country, I think, has more returning, and I'm very excited to see them this year.
Yeah, I think so. It definitely brings some new life into the district. I think there's a chance they can. I don't know if I'm going to say they're. I don't know. I think they can definitely be competitive with Lubbock Christian. I need to see it. It's a team that went 6-6, 2-2. They got whacked at the hands of Lubbock Christian and Covenant Christian last year, as well as Holy Cross in the quarterfinals. So it's just the team, like so many others we've discussed up to this point, that seem to be on the cusp, but haven't taken that jump to beat the teams you need to beat to be elite, which will be interesting. Ryan Schroeder, Lake Country Christian, is very appealing to me. I wonder if they are to you as well.
Definitely very appealing. I think the biggest difference, obviously, they're more appealing because where Covenant is at, not because I think Lake Country has made significant strides, if that makes sense. Like I think Colleyville Covenant with losing Fleming, Buckhalter, and Etta, like those are all guys, especially Fleming, obviously running your offense last year, which is going to be such a key piece for Lubbock Christian. Like, I mean, offensive player of the year, now Lubbock Christian gets to fill Horn's spot. Like if you can't open your eyes to the fact that that's probably the biggest news in this district. This is a team, Colleyville Covenant, that was 7 points away from being Lubbock Christian last year. 7 points away from theoretically winning this district. So I think I'm in the boat of because Covenant has lost guys. Even Covenant lost the older Cruz brother as well. Grant's older brother. Like there's a good amount of dudes that Covenant has lost this past offseason that I think put Lake Country in a better position. But it doesn't mean Covenant. I could see Covenant coming back and winning more games just by the fact that they're a team that does this. I mean, they shut out 2 district opponents last year, held 2 other opponents to under 14. It just depends on who all steps up on that team. Now with all the guys you've lost, but yeah, Lake Country obviously in a better position as well. 16 starters returning, like you said, but I think a lot of it revolves around the revolving door of Colleyville Covenant.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. And just going back to Covenant, it's hard to overstate how big of losses Jason Fleming, Coral Buckhalter,
Yeah.
and Indietta are. I mean,
Yep.
those are not just the three best players on your team; those are three of the best players
Yep.
in Division Three. Two of those are some of the best players in private school football. I mean,
Yeah.
Coral Buckhalter and Indietta went to Liberty Christian for God's sake. If you don't go there, if you're not good, I've heard. So, it's a massive loss. Obviously, Ryan, you spoke to the success that they had last year. They were only 7 points away from Lubbock Christian, farther than that away from Holy Cross. They got weed whacked by First Baptist, but
Mm,
everyone did
yeah.
in that era. But also, I mean, Walker brings up that obviously Joey Phillips comes in from Hyde Park and he's from the Beck Bryden pipeline. They still got guys like Cruz and Tim Castillo. And then also 6'2 senior wide receiver Max Mulhaney. And then the new transfer senior quarterbacks Ivan DeBanks and Peyton Janikowski. Walker, I'll throw this to you. I'm uncertain on Covenant just because I haven't seen a ton of film on the new guys, and I
Yeah.
know how good Fleming, Buckhalter, and Etta were.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm being too cautious and wanting to put Lake Country above them, or if this is a rational judgment to maybe say, let's wait and see on Covenant this year.
I definitely think it's more of a wait and see. First year head coach, your three-star players are transferring out. I mean, that's a recipe
Yeah.
for disaster for most teams. But I really love Joey Phillips. Shout out to him. I think he's going to do great over there. He understands the new era of Texas private school football. Grant Cruz is a great player. I like McElhaney after I watched him last year against Lubbock Christian, who dominated against Lubbock Christian last year. I think he's one to watch. And Ivan DeBanks was the guy came through, 7-on-7 and all of this, who was the earlier transfer, but just had another one, I think from Timber Creek and Jankowski. So wondering who's going to win that battle there. They're both like 6'2", 6'3". They have the size. Who just throws the ball better? And that's what we're going to find out this year. So, I think just kind of like we talked about it last episode in SBC, right? The pedigree. Colleyville Covenant's always a pedigree style team
Hmm.
and SB3A. So you kind of always have to put them at near the top. But I do think if any team if you were a betting man that you don't think they're going to be the best, it's probably Colleyville Covenant. Just how do you lose the three best players and say, all right,
Yeah.
I'm still really high on them. But can they reach the top and be maybe second or first place in that district? Yeah, absolutely. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely so. So that being said, those are kind of the established players, and that leaves us with Pantego Christian and Trinity Christian Willow Park, who went 1-3 and 0-4 respectively. Pantego's interesting because they started the season, what is that, 6-0 last year with wins over the like of Mercy Coulter, Shelton, Coram Deo, Trinity Christian Willow Park, ACHS, and the good old Daschi. And then they proceeded to drop, what is that, one, two, three straight, and then got shut out by Dallas Christian in the quarterfinals after beating Geneva Burney 47-24. Um, I'm trying to think how to put this. I'm just going to say that based on what I've seen with the talent the other teams bring in, and not to say Pantego and Willow Park don't have talent, I don't think it's realistic to assume that either are taking a step up. Walker, I know you know of a couple guys on Pantego that might be playmakers. I personally just don't think they're going to have the horses to run with the top dogs. Is there a reason to think otherwise?
No, I definitely don't think so. It doesn't mean that they can't still compete. They have Anthony Jackson coming in from Newman and National, which is funny because Grace Prep's quarterback also came in from Newman and National. So I guess they're just kind of that's not going well over there. So I mean, he had over 1,200 rushing yards last year, so it was a big thing. He's a good running back. But yeah, I think he's going to be kind of the star, maybe one of the rushing leaders in D3 next year. But with behind that, I really don't know. They lose one of their star players from last year. I forget his name, but he won an award for us. He won the Hart Award for us. So, I think it's just a whole new year for them. But I do want to shout out their new turf they put in this year. Y'all never played Pantego. That was a desperate upgrade that was needed for Pantego, and I'm very glad they did it. Granted, this was 10 years ago when I played there, but I'm glad they finally like, okay, we have the money, let's put it into it, and they have a really cool field.
That being said, that's kind of our outlook on District One. I'm sure inevitably TCA Willow Park is going to go 4-0 and prove us wrong. And I'm looking forward to that happening. But that being said, let us move on to District Two, where resides Goliath, for lack of a better term, in Dallas Christian, or so we have said in the past. And that was kind of the precipice to this episode that is DC, who went 11-2 and 5-0 in district last year and just, I mean, bushwhacked everyone that came across. Are they going to be able to play at the level that they did last year? They lose Luke Carney, they lose Titus Muse, they lose Gary Jefferson, they lose everyone virtually. However, they still have 10 seniors, 24 juniors, and 12 sophomores on that team. The line is going to be a point of emphasis for them, having guys like juniors, Brody Woodley and Jashawn Smith, who are 6'2", 300, 6'1", 295, respectively. And in terms of skill guys, they've got guys like sophomore Isaiah Lane, who is 185, runs a 4.5 40 at wide receiver cornerback. They got sophomore Dylan Bell, who also plays wide receiver and DB, runs about in the 4.5s. And also DJ Stanley, who is 5'10, 160, runs everything. However, he runs basically a 4.4 flat 40 and got timed at a 4.38 at Harding. In D3, if you're running that, you can pretty much do whatever you want. They've still got, like I said, four returning offensive linemen who started last season. From the people that I've spoken to within the program, and I think they got a bunch of transfers, and I think at least 9 from Forney alone. There's a lot of optimism in Mesquite. People are calling this the deepest team they've had in a while. I know there's still some, they haven't selected a quarterback yet. It's going to be interesting. I know Luke Savard is a guy who's returning from last year. They bring a couple guys in. That's going to be a question. Point blank period, you're not replacing Luke Carney. No one in the state is replacing Luke Carney. But in my opinion, and just looking at the district against Tyler All Saints, Bishop Gorman, Dallas Covenant, McKinney Christian, and Dallas Shelton, if you only wheel out the guys I just said and play 7-on-11, you're still going to win every game you play, in my opinion. Walker, that's my outlook on DC. We can get into a larger discussion if they're the favorites overall in D3. They most certainly are the favorites in this district.
Without a doubt. And you mentioned him really well, so I won't say too much. But going back to your point, right? Like, how do you respond with the loss of Luke Carney, right? This is the first time. I'll make sure. I think I'm correct. This might be the first time in a decade there's not a true Division One talent on Dallas Christian. Is that crazy to say? I don't think so. But
Not
that's
not that we know of, to be
right.
fair.
We might have one week 2 that just shows up and we're like, oh, of
Right.
course, there we go. But like right now, there's not a clear cut, oh, he's the best player in Division 3, right? We don't have that really this year with Dallas Christian. That is kind of, I would be kind of terrified if I was Dallas Christian with that fact, right? They're not going to win on talent alone. Granted, did they win on talent alone against Holy Cross? Not really. Their defense was incredible. Granted, if there was a man not named Luke Carney on that
Who
field,
played both sides of the
both
ball?
sides had multiple interceptions and did all this, is that a little thing? Yes. Like from what I've heard from like Luke Carney kind of won them that game, which is what you want in that division, right? So you don't have Luke Carney. You don't have the big guys. Jake Baker, who was the big offensive lineman, he's gone to, Tulsa offered offensive lineman. Your big weapons on the outside, they're not there. How do you respond? And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. Is they're deep like you've said, Wes, but you don't have the guy. And how does Dallas Christian respond when that guy doesn't step up and kind of win them some games?
Yeah, and I think even DJ Stanley is a smaller frame. He's at 5'10", 160. I think he could definitely rise up and be that guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a power four Division One guy, but they had Carney last year and then the offensive lineman. But outside of that, it was mostly just a really deep stable of dudes that made plays. And I still think with that, and again, I don't know if that's going to make them the clear-cut favorites in D1, but the people I've talked to around the program, I mean, it's optimism, and most of these people that I talked to wouldn't be optimistic. They were even very pessimistic last year. So even somehow, without Luke Carney, they're speaking in more optimistic terms than they were at various points last year. It's a very interesting situation. The one thing that there's 3 certainties in life. There's death, there's taxes, and there's Dallas Christian getting 15 guys in the offseason every year. a couple of those cats will be able to lead them to the state title. I'm gonna say that. You can come at me in the offseason when that prediction is inevitably wrong. Guess what? It probably will not be. Ryan Schroeder, final comments on Dallas Christian because I think they're going to be good regardless.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole situation we had last year where we talked up Dallas Christian being this like state championship level team. And then we talked ourselves out of it after they lost first game of the year to Cornerstone Christian. We started being like, man, like, who's going to really take this? And then you see them lose by 40 to Prestonwood. And you're like, wait, Holy Cross is doing things down, in San Antonio. Why are they not the favorite? So although we did say in August last year in the preview that we have Dallas Christian, we started turning our head around, and eventually you got to the state championship, and well, who won? It was the dynasty team, the team that's been there a million times over, the team that had Luke Carney for that matter. And I think it just kind of showed us that like, well, just Dallas Christian was the script all along. No matter what happens, no matter Prestonwood, Cornerstone Christian. I mean, you said death taxes, Dallas Christian always going to bring guys in. What if I told you death taxes, Dallas Christian's always going to go 5-0, 4-0, whatever it is in district this past year? I mean, that's an easier thing to say. This
Yeah.
past year, and everyone knows that. I guess everyone knows that too. This past year, their average margin of victory was like 49.8 points. I mean, this is a team that 1000% just runs through their side of their division, no matter what division it is, whether it's Division Two, Division Three. Obviously, they've gone down. Like Dallas Christian is the conceptual. We've seen it happen. They are the dynasty. They are the brand. They're going to come back around and do it again. The question is, there's so much uncertainty. Are we almost at a point of, with this much uncertainty, can we still be that confident in this dynasty? I mean, we'll tell you. Well, I mean, we'll hit it eventually, but it's hard not to be when you've seen the track record so far.
Yeah, and the final thing on them is we talk we've spoken a lot to the extent of coaching and the importance of having, like I literally just said, the figureheads at coaches. Mike Wheeler is the greatest
Yep.
in Division 3, very possibly in all of TAPPS. It's him and Novikov, really. I mean, he's a guy
Yeah.
that knows how to construct a roster, knows how to put assistant coaches around him. I just think the chances, unless if DC didn't have all these guys come in and we're looking at them and we're like, I don't know if there's any playmakers. Even then, I'm picking them first in the division. That's no slight to All Saints, Gorman, Covenant, McKinney Christian, Dallas Shelton, but it's a poor district. Not mincing words, but that being said, it's not going to be crazy to pick DC to come out and win this district. If anyone is going to take a crack at them, I think it's going to be Dallas Covenant, who very quietly went 8-4 and 4-1 in district last year. Their only district loss being to DC, and that was only a 24-13 loss. People forget Covenant had a really good showing. They were quietly very good last year. The big name for them is junior defensive lineman Connor Evans, or yeah, rising junior defensive lineman Connor Evans, 6'2", 275. I mean, dude, that's a legit college prospect. He's going to be very, very solid. You pair him with a guy like Mac Metzger, and then also guys like Duke Black, Davis Curlin, and other guys, younger guys like Caden Cosba. I think, and I forget the coach's name off the top of my head, but Covenant quietly for a couple years has been a team that's building, and they get thrown in the shadow of DC just because they're not DC. But I do think that, like we said with the teams around Lubbock Christian, if there's a year to maybe rise up and try and take a crack at the established powers, Jacob Zinn is the head coach of Covenant. Thank you, Walker. Um, I think this could be a good year to do that. Walker, I personally don't think that Covenant is going to upset Dallas Christian this year. Do you think they would have a better chance this year than in years past?
Sure. Like, you know what I mean? Yes, they should. No,
Okay.
Luke Carney should be easier, but like, I don't know. You're asking me to say something that hasn't been done in like a decade. So, yeah, but any of these teams, like, it's the boogeyman, right? Like it's the boogeyman. Are you able to
You could
overcome the
that
boogeyman?
term is reserved for Max Saul and Max Saul only.
But if it's a team, I don't know. I don't pick
Rolling
one.
ball of chainsaws. We'll
They
bring it
are,
back.
yes, bring it back. They are the rolling ball of chainsaws, and for a decade, no one's able to beat them. So, like, you want me to say yes, they have a shot? Yeah, absolutely. but it hasn't been done in a decade. So I don't I don't know what you want me to say, man. Like, sure.
I will say the move down to D3 has actually very greatly favored Dallas Christian because I know initially when they went down they weren't happy about it because they were dominating D2 and they wanted to play better competition. In this day and age, I don't think that DC team competes with the teams of All Saints, Regents, all
Oh
of them.
no.
But I mean, they're actually at kind of a perfect competition level in D3, in my
Yes.
opinion. Not in this district, but with teams like Lubbock Christian, what Holy Cross was last year. That was fun once you got into the postseason. I think it's a perfect balance. Ryan Schroeder, as we finish
I
go
don't
on.
want to say they're finally a Division 3 team. That's what they are. They're finally at their level, which is good to say. And if you think about it, in the past, what, 5, 6 years, the only time a competitive team being able to beat DC was a walk-off pick six. That's what you have to do to beat DC in the past 5 years. You know what I mean? So I'm very glad they are finally a competitive Division 3 team.
That might be the greatest moment in all of TAPPS football history. But that being said, Ryan Schroeder, a lot of conversation around that. We've got some other teams. There's some guys on All Saints that I like senior quarterback Manny Miser and freshman Kylan Erskine, who apparently had 6 touchdowns his first high school scrimmage. Hopefully he stays at All Saints, but that's just some rambling. Ryan, I think Covenant is going to be good, but I don't think any team is going to be able to take a crack at DC. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Connor Evans is incredible. I mean, there's a couple of, college level dudes, you know, D1 type dudes that are on some of these teams, kind of. But I mean, it's hard not to lean just towards what I know and what I can more believe. It's this conversation of I could almost even argue that teams like Lubbock Christian, teams like Colleyville Covenant, um, and obviously teams like Dallas Christian, they just bring to the table every year. Uh, they just bring multiple guys and they reload. And even if I don't know a team going into a season and who all they're returning, I can depend on those teams to go get me 8 wins. Now, I feel like Dallas Covenant starting in that conversation. They're a team that's going to give you 8 wins every year at this point. I would like to believe that they have something brewing there, but they're brewing in a district of Dallas Christian. They're brewing in a district that has some would say a rolling ball of chainsaws. I wouldn't brew anything in an area where chainsaws are at. So that's all I have to say.
I like that a lot. Between the boogeyman and the rolling ball of chainsaws, my monikers and analogies have gotten more stale as times go
Mm,
on. So
mm.
I need to develop
Bring it
something for
back
a
up.
team this year.
Yeah. No, that's
We'll
fair.
see.
We'll figure it out.
We will absolutely will figure it out. But that's District 2. Moving into the last district, the third and final one in TAPPS Division 3. That's going to be the teams or the district that consists of Holy Cross, who went 13-1, 5-0 last year. Bernie Geneva, who went 6-5 and 3-2 in district. The Hill Country School of Austin, who went 4-7, 2-3 in district. Schertz John Paul II, who went 1-10 and 1-4. New Braunfels Christian, who went 9-2 and 4-1 in district. And then Corpus Christi John Paul II, who went 0-10 and 0-5. So, gentlemen, there was virtually no discussion around this district outside of Holy Cross because nobody warranted any discussion outside of Holy Cross. And this is where I'm so grateful we had Jacob Bermudez last year to document kind of the inside view of this program. This was one of the most fun stories. It's the most fun run that I've covered since we've been on this program. It sucks that it ended in a loss for them, and I guess that's coming off as biased because we built so much hype into it. Maybe that's just because we were wrong, but this isn't the same team as last year. Clearly, last year their average margin of victory in district play was 53-1. They allowed 7 total points per game in district play all of last year. However, Jose Lerma, Valenzuela, Patrick Ortiz, Marco Gomez, Marcus Perez, everyone from the defense, and obviously Gibby Alvarado. They're all gone. Anyone that made plays for this team, for the most part, is gone. And we know that last year, Coach Harrison was very big on playing the starters all the way through the season. My question for this team is, will that lack of reps for the underclassmen hurt a very fresh-faced night squad,
Ooh.
or is this district just too poor for it to even matter? I know I was talking to Jacob Bermudez, and I was like, "Hey, I haven't seen a whole lot of the young kid Rocky at quarterback. We've heard he's going to be good, but from what you saw last year, what do you think?" And that's where I got it from Jacob. He was like, "The people under the ones didn't play that much. Harrison made it a point to make sure that the ones played pretty much the whole game. So we're going in with a lot of uncertainty about Holy Cross. Walker, I don't know. I mean, I'm comparing them against teams like both the John Pauls, Bernie Geneva, Hill Country School of Austin, New Braunfels. New Braunfels had some shakeup in coaching with Bronkhorst leaving. They went 4-1. I need to look and see who they bring back. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Holy Cross still probably going to be fine in this district, but I want to see what you say because there's a lot of uncertainty and question marks.
Yeah, I you have to put Holy Cross the clear number one team in this district just because of how dominant they were last year. Um, it's going to be intriguing to see how it goes. I know Salas, who I think was their DC at Holy Cross last year, went to Bernie Geneva, and I believe he's uh the new DC over here at Bernie Geneva. So you kind of get that skill and the top team goes helps one of the smaller teams. So that could be interesting for sure. Um, but I do think Holy Cross is going to be the toughest team to beat in the South again. What I've heard is that they're going to be bigger on the offensive defensive lines, which is shocking because how do you lose Lerma and Valenzuela and say that? But that's what they're saying. So that's going to be interesting. I think the Stars, right? The reason they were so close, I think, with DC last year is that their biggest players, like, were able to make the big plays, right? The Lerma, Valenzuela controlled the defense and offensive lines. Patrick Ortiz is gone. They just lose so many big times dudes, man. And it's gonna be hard to compete in this district and division. But I do think you have to put them in the clear cut favorite for, like you said, margin of victory. It was 53-1. That doesn't just change in 1 year.
Yeah, and I want to agree with that. It's just they lose
I get
everyone that
it.
contributed to that point. They lose. They're
I get it.
gone.
I get it. But this is another one of those teams that just was always a good team, right? Even when they were in their Division 2 days, they were solid. In all of Division 3, every year, I don't think there's a year that they didn't make the semifinals. You know what I mean? So I think that's just how it is nowadays. And yeah.
Ryan Schroeder, like the discussion with Lubbock Christian and Dallas Christian, Holy Cross is quite obviously the established power in this district. I don't know if it's laziness from an analyst perspective on my part, but like Walker said, I don't think things change that rapidly, even with the volume that Holy Cross lost. Looking at who they bring back, where they are, and especially the context of the district around them. Is it a reasonable assumption to say that Holy Cross still should be the favorite in this district?
Yeah, I think I go into this motion that I'm gonna believe Holy Cross is the favorite until otherwise proven that they're not. There are teams like New Braunfels Christian, who are a little bit different this year, obviously with the coaching switch up, but they still have guys like Dylan Wickham who are still there. A 29 rushing yard touchdown guy last year, guy that averaged about 170 yards a game, ran a 10 9 100-meter dash. So it's kind of this it's this ideology in my head of like I haven't seen New Braunfels under their new coaching staff, and I haven't seen Holy Cross without all their dudes as well under Coach Harrison, this new crew. But yeah, it doesn't bode well. Obviously, they put all their eggs in one basket last year, which they were 3 points away from putting all their eggs in one basket, winning the state title. But I think it's going to hurt them this year. But they knew what was coming. They knew it was a make or break type season and stuff, and so they went all out. I think that it was their best shot at winning the title, and so this district, like you said off the rip, West, is a little bit down in the dumps compared to others. But I would still argue that Holy Cross is either the one or the two, if not the one. New Braunfels Christian, I think, is on the rise for sure. It'll just be different from what they had last year, just from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, I think so as well. Walker, Lott, anything you want to hit outside of District 3 before we move on to Division 4?
No, I think it's going to come down to can those young guys at Holy Cross compete and win? Like, the thing about it is, this is the last thing I'll say. Holy Cross has to win kind of like they did last year to show me that they can compete with the Lubbock Christians and the DCs of the world, right? Like, to that level, you have to dominate this side of the state to compete with the rest of the state. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think that we are going to need to see the same level of dominance that we did last year because they didn't even win the state title last year with that level of dominance. Now, granted, DC's taken a step back. Lubbock Christian honestly seems almost on the same footing as they did. So you put it very well. I think to trust Holy Cross as a state title contender, especially once we get into district, we're going to need to see maybe it doesn't really need to be have to be a 51-7 average margin of victory. It's going to need to be close for us to hold that same argument. But that being said, that is the scoop on TAPPS Division 3. We're now going to move down into TAPPS Division 4, in which there are two districts to cover. So the first being District 1, we have Dallas First Baptist, obviously, who went 12-1. The only loss being to that Holy Cross squad. They went 5-0 in district. Waco Live Oak went 8-4, 4-1 in district. Munster Sacred Heart went 6-5, 3-2 in district. Mercy Culture Prep went 4-8 and 2-3 in district. And Waco Riker went 0-10 and 0-5 in district play. Gentlemen, we cannot start anywhere except for Dallas First Baptist. Who is going to win the state championship come December? I mean, I'd be an idiot
no,
not to
it's
say
that's
it. I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
anyone else looking again, you say all this stuff. You say, okay, we can say who people have on paper. You can't establish what's going to happen until the games are played on the gridiron. I I famously once bet my house and lost. I will now bet
Mm,
this house. I will bet Walker Lott's residence. I will bet
Mm,
Ryan Schroeder's residence. I will
mm.
wager the small amount of assets I hold in my name that Dallas First Baptist wins the state title in December. And the sad thing is, the
Wow.
return I would get for that might be $5 on a Coke. That's how good the odds are in favor of Dallas First Baptist moving into the season. I mean, listen, they've got guys like senior quarterback Dylan Jones, senior wide receiver Dominic Sadu, returns, which is massive, immediately the best player in the division, in my opinion. You've got junior wide receiver KJ Sykes, who's 6'3", 185. You got junior wide receiver Lincoln Schlief, who is probably my favorite receiver in all of TAPPS. That dude is just nasty. Runs a sub 10.8 as a junior. You've got junior linebacker Georgiana Agostis. You've got senior defensive lineman Corey Thomas. You've got senior wide receiver DB athlete Micah Foster. There are so many horses. You got Jason Lavorne as the head coach. You got D Rob, who is the best wide receiver trainer in the country. You got Coach Wade, who's coaching the DBs. You've got Trench Warfare, Brandon Tucker coaching the defensive line. This is it's a death squad. I mean, it quite literally is a death squad. It's I cannot come up with enough adjectives and analogies to describe them. No one is coming within 21 points of this team. They're going to get their lick back on Holy Cross, in my opinion. What I'm interested in is the first game against Lynch, which is really interesting. They outclassed them in the skill positions, in my opinion. I know this is going to get clipped by Coach Sublett and Coach Moats and everyone when they inevitably win, but I think the offensive line trying to hold up against Lynch's defensive line and then vice versa is always going to be very difficult. But that being said, we're not comparing the Lynch game. We're looking at the overall district outlook. Walker, I'm out of breath.
yeah.
I can't even ask you if you think it's rational that First Baptist is going to win state because they are. Give me your outlook on the Saints moving into the season.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think they're going to be a dominant team. I can't bring the same hype as you. I'm sorry.
No,
You
no,
know what I
there's
mean?
nothing else to say
Right.
almost.
They're just like, yes, they're going to be really good. They're going to be awesome. I like their games against Bishop Lynch to start the year and Holy Cross in the middle of the year. Those are going to be fun games for them to do. Especially with Dominic Sadu coming back. You know, we've talked about it in the past couple years. Like, I know you love Lincoln, but you know, the only things you could have ever said about this team is there's not an Elijah Cation, there's not a Mark Rayson. Dominic Sadu comes back, kind of negates that, and then you have a 10-8 guy at the other side. Like this is going to be an unreal year for them. I think with everyone kind of getting down, like there's not a Lubbock Christian they have to face. There's not a pretty stacked Brazos Christian team last year. We'll talk about the other half of in D4 in a second, which I think are going to be there's going to be two teams. They will probably one of the two teams they'll face in Waco again this year. Um, it's just going to depends on which team gets first and second place and doesn't see Brazos Christian on their side of the bracket. So
Yeah, no, the
Or
best
First
you
Baptist on the other side of the bracket. Sorry.
yeah, no, the best you can hope for as a D4 team is to delay the execution at the hands of First Baptist in the playoffs for as long as physically possible, which is pretty good motivation to get a high seed in your district. But Ryan, I don't know how many other ways I can phrase this. Give me your thoughts on First Baptist and District 1 in Division 4.
You're literally describing them as prime parish. You're describing them as like prime. You're literally you're putting the words of like this team is whatever. You said to describe in the D4 setting. It's so hard not to. I don't really want to talk about their schedule and district. It doesn't really matter. I like Walker. I'm looking at Bishop Lynch. I'm looking at Holy Cross. I'm looking at both the Covenant games. I'm looking at anything that screams more of a interesting, game than their district schedule. And that's nothing to their district schedule mates. It's just the fact that First Baptist on a tier of their own. They literally could compete in D3 against a lot of teams. They could compete in D2 against in some districts.
They'd win D3 in my opinion.
They're in a district. They're in a division right now where it's almost unfair to have them there. But that's just not the world we live in. We live in a world that trains or that puts these divisions by school size, by class size, projected year by year. So it's just hard. It's hard to say that First Baptist isn't anything but the state championship here August 20th, speaking to you right now, or whenever this video comes out. But I'll tell you this. I think Wes going out already and claiming the state title by 21 points. Is that what you said? 21 points state, or you said
I said
district?
no one in D4 is coming within 21 points of them,
Okay.
and that might be generous.
Okay, because now we're looking at the people we're about to talk about, Central Texas Christian, Brazos Christian. If I'm hearing that, I I don't know, Wes Tolleson. I would like to think that, I think First Baptist is incredible, and I obviously think they're the state champions. But if I'm Brazos Christian or I'm Central Texas Christian, I'd be listening to Wes Tolleson there, who just bet three assets, including my own, on you losing. And I would say that you need to step it up. I mean, this is not First Baptist's championship yet. We got 4 months.
Well, I mean that 21 point line. I mean they beat Central Texas by 33 in the semis. They beat Brazos Christian by 26 or 27 in the state championship. I mean,
I'm the
I
worst.
mean,
I'm the
listen.
worst Devil's advocate of all time. I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't think any of these teams are gonna do it. I think First Baptist is gonna win by 30. But I'm trying to play the other side because I have to. I have to give motivation. I'm a diehard. I'm a First Baptist diehard at this
No,
point.
and the funny thing is, I don't think Coach LeVoirn's going to even let his guys hear this because it's rat poison coming out of my mouth. It might just be that might be the challenge for the whole season. Is, hey, we got to beat everyone in D4 by 3 touchdowns. If we don't, we lose, and we've let down the buffoon that screams into a microphone every week. So we'll see. That we will add a line into every script. Will First Baptist cover will be a recurring segment. That being said, I'm really excited for that game against Lynch. I think it's going to tell us where they are, especially also that game against Holy Cross. But there surprisingly are more teams in this district than Dallas First Baptist. It doesn't seem like it from the way we spoke, but we have Waco Live Oak very quietly had a great season last year, going 8-4, 4-1 in district. Obviously, only losing to First Baptist in district, although that was a 50-21 loss. I mean, they've got some dudes clearly that can play. Running back Tristan Waxman had 805 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Linebacker Jaden McNamara is really good. Defensive lineman Jake Waxman, who I'm assuming is related to Tristan Waxman with that same last name. They've got guys that are solid. Walker, I think Jake swung by and covered them in spring, and they've got some guys that can play. Again, their their season should not be judged by their performance against First Baptist, in my opinion. But I think Waco Live Oak is going to be solid. I'm curious to hear if you think the same.
Yeah, we talked about it a while back that, with kind of Riker going downhill, Live Oak's kind of taking that reins of being like the prominent school in Waco. And Waco is one of the bigger cities in the state of Texas, right?
Hmm.
And it is the only private school plus Riker in that area. So
Hmm.
they should get a lot of talent in there if there's for the money that is in Waco, they should be going to Live Oak or Riker. So they should be more competitive. I'm excited to see how they do. This was a team in the past couple years have been dominant in six man, and they're finally going up to 11 man, and they're kind of, doing better. So I think they keep improving. I think they, learn how 11 man is, and I think they keep improving. And I think they're definitely the second best team in that district again this year.
I mean, Walker, by that logic, Tyler is one of the larger cities in the state of Texas.
Yeah,
Okay,
But Tyler
it's
didn't have good
Waco.
football.
Waco's in the.
Ah, okay, okay. Grace would beat Live Oak.
Whoa!
Grace would beat Live Oak.
Whoa!
They're talking about
No, I'm
D4
not. I
versus
mean,
a.
I don't know. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
That's all I got, dude.
Okay, cool.
So,
All
but
right.
okay, at least well, Waco's at least top 10 in the state, right? That's not.
They got
In
142,000 people.
population, I mean,
Yeah.
you got a place like El Paso. And you
Well,
got
yeah,
places like
they're El Paso's bigger. I think it goes
there's
Houston,
so many
Dallas,
cities. What about
Fort
Corpus
Worth.
Christi? What about
Oh
like
man,
It's
you're
Houston, San
Brownsville.
Antonio, Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, El Paso, Arlington, Corpus Christi,
there's so many.
Plano, and Irving. So four of those are just
Never
are
mind.
suburbs of Dallas.
Frisco, I bet you could name 8 different suburbs of Dallas, and they're all going to be
Just
there.
keep
So
going up, and you'll find more. Yeah.
Exactly.
So going to
Waco's
Live
the
Oak.
24th largest city in Texas.
Really, that's
Hmm.
it's
crazy.
all good though. It's all
No,
good. They got Baylor. Yeah, so I think Waco Live Oak, obviously they've had improvements to the facilities, have had improvements to other things. They also just got a new coach in. The old coach at Moody High School, about like an hour out maybe of Waco. He's now in there. His name's Matthew Hurst. He's the new coach at Waco Live Oak. I I think what I see from this now is Waco Live Oak has done a lot to improve their program over the years, whether it's putting money into it or there's new, growing the school size in general to going to 11 man football. I'm really excited to see what they do. It is a prominent area. I think Waco's destined for success, and I think Live Oak's the school to do it. So we'll be interested to see what they do under Coach Hurst. But coming from a school like Moody, I think he has a shot to maybe make something new out of this team in D4.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And the last team I want to hit on in District 1 is Mercy Culture Prep, who went 4-8 last year, 2-3, but seemingly creeping into prominence. Senior Braden Raybuck is definitely a solid returning piece. John Larbizidal transfers out to Springtown. We obviously see junior Haltom quarterback Gage Steely transfer into the program, and then also senior edge Jude Mikowski returns at 6'6", 225. There's perpetually a lot of hype around Mercy Culture Prep, and in my opinion, they've got to beat Live Oak and Sacred Heart to take that next step forward. And I think I really like the energy that Coach Riley has injected, excuse me, into the program. The people don't realize whenever we constantly see things on social media, it vaults your team into the limelight a little bit, and it naturally makes us cover you more, which is interesting. That being said, in terms of substance this season, like I said, I've got to see them beat Live Oak. I got to see them beat Sacred Heart. And then we might start saying, all right, Mercy Culture Prep really might be coming this year. I would say throw First Baptist in that equation, but that's a pipe dream, not just for Mercy Culture Prep, for any team in D4 and the vast majority of teams in D3 and a lot in Division 2 as well. Walker Lott, I like some of the pieces that Mercy Culture has. For me, it's just that question is, are you going to take the next step and beat some of the better teams in the district this year?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I really like Mercy Culture. They are also this offseason thing for them. They were the first high school ever to be fully sponsored by Battle. And
I
that's a
saw
pretty
that.
cool thing. So shout out to them. That's culture changing. Everything they do, it's like their Nike, their Under Armour is Battle. And that's really cool. So shout out to them. I need some gear. I need some battle gear. That's basically what I'm saying. So send that over our way, please. Anyways, but yeah, I think they have to take that next step. Losing John Lasberdal is a huge piece. He's going over to Springtime. Um, that's huge because he would have been with Austin Evans the best running back in that whole division. And you want a guy like that. I like Braden Raybuck. He's going to be a dude this year, big time player if he's anything like his brother. So I'm really, really excited about that. The question is, yeah, how do you beat Munster Sacred Heart? Munster Sacred Heart was easily probably the fifth best team in all of Division 4 last year. So can you get over the hump there? If you get over the hump there, then the Live Oaks maybe is more possible, but you got to beat the Munster team. So that's going to be an interesting thing because Munster's not a slouch always in Division Four, and I don't think they are going to be getting this year. They're not the top three, but they're not the bottom. You know what I mean? So you have to get over that hump.
I agree. Ryan Schroeder, any closing comments on District 1 in Division 4 before we move down to the South?
No, nothing else. We've kind of be a dead horse here. Not much to say else but First Baptist, so I think we can move on to the South.
There we go. So moving down into the Southern District 2 of Division 4, the teams consisting this region are Brazos Christian, who went 10 and 3, 3 and 2, or state finalists. Central Texas Christian, who went 10 and 2, 4 and 1, or state semifinalists. Conroe Covenant, who went 5 and 6 and 3 and 2 in district. Rose Hill Christian, who went 3 and 7, then 0 and 5. Hollisville Sacred Heart, who went 7 and 4 and 4 and 1, and Shiner St. Paul, who went 4 and 8 and 1 and 4. So we got to start with Brazos Christian, who made the state finals, ultimately, sadly, fell at the hands of First Baptist 42-15. They obviously lose a lot from the prior year. Walker, I know you got to go see them during spring. And then also, Sean O'Reilly, one of our fantastic interns, also wrote a really in depth preview looking at the roster of Brazos Christian as well as how he projects they're going to finish, which I think was a very optimistic 10 and 1 or somewhere around there. Walker, I'm jealous that you got to experience some of the hype down there, especially bringing coach Jordan Black, formerly a Division II state champion, who I am on record as saying was an absolute steal falling to a D4 program. You've been around the program. You got to interview Coach Black, watch spring practice, also interview some of the guys at Brazos County Media Day. To let anyone else break down the outlook on the Eagles will be a disgrace. I'm curious how you think they're shaping up after losing so much on that state finalist team last year.
Dude, I think they look really, really good. I'm really excited about this team. I think they have pieces that are going to be really, really exciting. Guys, there was a just giant senior class last year that has been through the ranks, started at least 3+ years, most of these guys, and just had a lot of film under their belt. And you saw that culmination into a state championship appearance. And you have guys that were essential last year, just now stepping up to the plate, right? Guys like guys like Reed Jackson, who was an all-state guy on both sides of the ball, I believe. And it's going to be one of our favorites for maybe not MVP, but OPOY, DPOY, like those type of players. Like that's what he's going to bring. Ty Urban, the big time dude that's going to be O line, D line, maybe linebacker now for them is going to be a big time player for them. Then you have, of course, Micah Sachs, who's coming back, who's going to be a wide receiver athlete for them, who I'm really excited to see how he does. Carson Ramsey is going to be the interesting point. What everything I've heard about this kid has been good, good, good. And Carson is a 27 athlete for them. He is a basketball player coming over playing football for the first time, and he is transitioning very smoothly and dominating and everything they've done from 7-on-7 into fall camp. And I'm really excited to see how he does this year. Could definitely be a newcomer of the year honoree for the Division 4 level. And then, of course, we have to talk quarterback. Hudson Jacobus came over for the retreat this summer. 6'4", 6'3", big body. We talked a lot about him in this spring ball recap of like, I think he can be kind of that Josh Allen caliber type dude in the Division 4 level where he's just going to be bigger than everyone else in that level. So he should be able to have his legs be one of his key pieces and be able to run the ball extremely well, but also he will be able to be accurate and make the throws that he needs to do. And so you have guys like that. You have another big time transfer in Hunter Black, who is, uh, uh, Jordan Black's son, who comes over from Tomball Homeschool, 6'4" defensive end. Probably will be maybe the best defensive end in all of TAPPS this year, or TAPPS Division 4 this year. So that'll be a really fun to watch. And then there's other transfers he talked about in his article from Sean O'Reilly. So shout out to him. Lowry Carter, Cade Bird, Eli Cole. There's some other guys that are going to be on this team. But overall, I think this team is poised to make a big time back. I like his 10-1 thing. I just pulled up his record, his thing. It seems like it should be a 10-1 season for them. I don't think that's a disappointing or outrageous thing for him to say. It's going to come down to the Central Texas Christian game, which we should talk about now.
Yeah, that being said, Central Texas, if the numbers are correct, returns 17 starters There's 22 possible starters that you can return on a team. They returned 17. I'm not great at math, but that appears pretty good. More important than any is probably Austin Evans, who I said will likely. I need to see exactly who First Baptist has, but I can say pretty confidently will likely be the best running back in Division Four. He's coming off of a 1,300-yard, 19 touchdown season where he averaged 7 yards per carry. He also led the team in interceptions with two. Kid just does it all. And I'm not just saying that because he's one of our interns. He's a legitimate, great player. You've also got 6'2", 215 Ike Kilmchuk returning at wide receiver and
Dude,
linebacker. He is a dog. He led the team at receiving touchdowns and forced/slash recovered fumbles. Also, senior Cooper Smith at quarterback, who's a 3-year starter. Rhett Humphreys and Princeton Schneider at wide receiver as well. Walker, I think there's a case to put the Lions number one in the South. I haven't experienced Brazos Christian as much as you, or obviously Sean has. As of now, think that Central Texas is going to win the South in D4.
yeah.
Would you concur?
Yes, I think as the media people that we are, we have to put them number one. I think they returned the best running back in all of Division Four in Austin Evans. I love Ike Klimchuk, who I think might be the best linebacker outside of George Ananastas out there. And Cooper Smith is a 3-year starter. And I like this film. I think he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in Division Four this year. It's going to be like him, Dylan Jones, and Hudson Jacobus, all for that like top three spot right there. And there's some other spots like 17 returning starters is huge, right? It's going to come down to the trenches. Losing a couple of their guys to graduation and Brazos Christian getting guys like, of course, Hunter Blackend. And, I forgot to even mention Grant Boheim, who we interviewed at the media day, who is I think he's going to be a big time player for them. Darius Bumskill comes off ACL, but he looks to be really good this year. So Brazos Christian has a pretty good defensive line this year. They're going to be good at the trenches. Is that the edge over probably the better skill guys for CTCS? But even though Reed Jackson, Micah Sachs, Hudson Jacobus, that's going to be a fun matchup, and that's definitely going to be a game of the week for us because that's going to come down to the battle, come down to a battle. Because if I remember last year, CTCS was up on Brazos Christian, and then Brazos Christian scored like 21 straight in the end to win that game. And so they can go back and forth, and I think it's going to be a banger. And whoever does that game meet is going to go to Waco. That's basically what that game means. That game, whoever wins that is going to get the number one seed, be on the other side of the First Baptist and make it to Waco. So that's what's going to be. Everything is on the line in that game for these two teams.
I Do you think it'd be more worthy to lose just a game in the semifinals where you play the best you possibly can and maybe you can blame losing on a call to the ref or a freak thing as opposed to making it to state and getting beat by 40 by First Baptist?
I don't know. Maybe.
It's a hypothetical.
Hypothetical, of course,
It's
right?
a hypothetical from three guys that never played the state championship in their lives. So I couldn't tell. Ryan Schroeder, um, it's shaping up to be Brazos Christian versus Central Texan. Rose Hill might have something to say about that, which we'll get to in a moment. But as the way things seem now for this two-horse race in the South of Division Four, what are your thoughts on these two teams that clearly seem to be at the head of the pack?
Definitely at the head of the pack, for sure. I mean, it's hard not to argue that Central Texas Christian is a very prominent team. They've obviously almost returned their entire team, an entire team of 10-2 last year. But this is a team that kind of has a kryptonite. I know we'll hit them in a second, but Hallettsville Sacred Heart took Central Texas Christian to double overtime last year. They only lost by 2 points in the playoffs. Hallettsville Sacred Heart is quite, I just said it, they're the kryptonite of Central Texas Christian. Now, I know Central Texas Christian is going to be like, well, we won both those games, so who cares? But it's like, at the end of the day, came down to the wire both games. One of them almost ended your season before First Baptist did by 23 points, so I guess it was inevitable. 33 points, so I guess it's inevitable. But I would like to say that we can talk about Brazos Christian, we can talk about Central Texas Christian, but I think we got to give our flowers to Hallettsville Sacred Heart as well.
Yeah, definitely so. And right after I said that Rose Hill Christian might have something to say about that, y'all cannot see, but in all caps on the script, it comes up. Rose Hill has something to say? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? I'm assuming that is Walker Lott typing that out. I say that because Rose Hill apparently brings back 18 starters, which,
Hmm.
granted, you could make the point that those 18 starters last year went 3-7 and 0-5 in district, which is valid. However, if you bring that many people back, it warrants a conversation. You know, they've got guys. Freshman quarterback Hudson Hurst is going to be interesting if he gets the starting job. You bring back Caleb Davia and Ben Moore at running back. Walker,
Yeah.
I've talked so much about the top dogs in all these divisions, and even people that are more familiar with the smaller schools in the South. I mean, they're predicting things like 7-3. They think Rosso's going to be athletic, maybe undersized, but apparently can manage that in that division, which is true. You're not having big hulking guys in the D4 South. Um, Again, I'm kind of talking out of my hind end because I don't know quite as much, but I think there's a chance. I don't think they're going to win the district. I think they could be in contention.
I mean, I could definitely see a path to it could be that way. I really like Brooks Johnson down there too, the 28 guy, linebacker, defensive player. Um, they have pieces, but I just think the pedigree of the Hallettsville Sacred Hearts, the Shiner St. Paul's, they're just not there yet. Can they get there under the new head coach, first year head coach, and the athletic director, I believe, went over there from Allen Academy. So they're revitalizing their athletic program. Absolutely, right? But I just don't see it this year happening, especially with Shiner St. Paul. I know they have the coach from last year comes in, but who do they really have? That's going to be interesting to see. Um, Looks like they have Jace Matias at quarterback for them. The question, I will say this: Sacred Heart again has two Haas brothers. There is a senior and a sophomore coming back again this year. As long as the Haas family is putting kids through Sacred Heart will never be the bottom of that division or that district. It just never will happen. I'm just saying that now. So as long as they're there, and they have Lane Sevick over there, the 27, Bowen Hawkins, and Ty Noska. There's some other guys there that I'm excited to see how Sacred Heart does. But as long as there's a Haas on the Sacred Heart team, they will win games. And so I think there's probably the team that is like probably that fourth team,
They're like,
fifth team
oh,
uh,
okay, in
uh
division.
in the district. Yes, in the division. Yes. So I'd put them on the other Sacred Heart team. Monster Sacred Heart, Hallettsville Sacred Heart, that like 5-6 range. You thought I was gonna say something, but
It's
I
so
tricked
They're,
close.
y'all.
I don't even think. What are you saying? I don't even know if that's right. I'm trying to like. You're almost making the joke, and you're like wrong. I would actually put Hallettsville. Am I dumb? Why would is Hallettsville not at like the 4? Oh wait, I'm bad at math. Hold on, guys. Hold on. This is gonna be counting with Ryan Schroeder. Let's see if I can do it. First Baptist, Brazos Central. Okay. So it is like 6 or 7 or something like that.
It's just not.
That was just a
I
big setup to get to
no,
the
I
6-7 joke.
you didn't even like it, dude. You didn't even like it. God.
Yeah,
But
but
shout out for going back to this. Shout out to Clayton Haas, the senior over there, 6'2", should be a good player. And there's also Colby Haas, the 6'2" sophomore. So very excited to see how they do. The Haas family has been there for generations now, and I'm excited to see them continue to dominate.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that, unless there's any further comments, that kind of wraps up our conversation on the D4 South, as well as D4 overall, as well as D3 and D4 overall. So, our very high level thoughts on how divisions are going to shake out. Like we've said in prior previews, really interesting with some teams losing some significant playmakers, but also guys getting transfers, et cetera, in. It's going to be really, really fun. But of course, we cannot get out of here without looking at some rankings and predicting, maybe in a futile manner, how this season's going to shake out. So we're going to start with Division Three. We're going to do our top five rankings for each D3 and D4. In Division Three, the TXPS Media preseason top five rankings. At number one, we have Dallas Christian. At number two, we have Lubbock Christian. At number three, San Antonio Holy Cross. At number four, Lake Country Christian of Fort Worth. At number five, Colleyville Covenant Academy. And that is the top five for Division Three. Looking at D4, at number one, surprise, surprise, Dallas First Baptist Academy. At number 2, Central Texas Christian School. At number 3, Brazos Christian out of Bryan. At number 4, Waco Live Oak. And then rounding out the top 5, we have Munster Sacred Heart. So, gentlemen, those are our top 5 rankings for each. Walker, I'll pitch it to you for quick comments regarding the overall rankings. We pitched a big game about, there's teams that we think could maybe shake up the power dynamics. At the end of the day, we've got DC and First Baptist at number 1 in both divisions, but those, especially 3 through 5 spots, I think have some room for contention. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I think in the number one spots, one's more confident than the other. First Baptist is way more confident than DC
Hmm.
this year.
For sure.
I think 1 through 3 can honestly it can be changed in a way for the D3 rankings. I think Lubbock Christian has the most hype probably of the 3 teams going into this year. But like you said, Wes, like death taxes in DC kind of always just dominating their division. So. Um, you got to put DC there. They're 4-time state champions straight. They have everything going for them. They should be the favorites in that district, in that division. And also, just the North usually runs that district or division. Goodness gracious. We need to get back into the season, so I keep stop saying those words district and division. But uh, the North always runs that division. That's why you see Lake Country there, Colleyville Covenant. I think a Dallas Covenant can be a little bit behind, but right now, and also like I know every other division we've done top tens in each rankings of each district. We truly don't know how these are going to play out because some teams are just so far south versus others. So it doesn't make sense to do that right now for these 2 divisions. As the season goes on and we kind of get more of a structure, we'll do it. But right now, it just makes sense to do top fives in both. And that's why you see that's where it is right now. Holy Cross, they can go higher, but it's just a lot of question marks about that team, right? And that's what we're going to have to figure out. And going to D4, I think Central Texas is the media side better than Brazos Christian, but I do think that game can go either way in season, and that's going to be fun to watch. And then the Live Oak, can they continue the reign that they did last year and be better? And then the Sacred Hearts. Munster Sacred Heart had the better season last year, but Hallettsville was still a really solid team last year. Can they keep going and go higher and make it into the top 5 range? So overall, good times, good teams, always a lot of fun in D3 and D4.
Definitely so. By far, what I'm looking forward to the most is that battle between Brazos Christian and Central Texas Christian. I think that might be the most even and maybe hate-filled matchup that we have. There's
Yeah.
nothing I enjoy more than hate in private school sports, and hate might be a strong word for a rivalry. If you spent any time on social media, you'll know that Central Texas Christian and Brazos Christian do not like each other.
Nope.
And I don't know if there's any real animosity there, but gosh darn it, is it fun whenever there's some palpable build up to these games and you're like, oh, we've got more than just a game riding on this. We got reputations at stake.
Yep.
Very excited to see how that pans out. Ryan Schroeder, before we get out of here, we spent a lot of time detailing where we think these teams stack up before the season. We finally put pen to paper and ranked the top 5 in each division. Your thoughts on the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that D3 is like D1 in some aspect. It's an open field battle, more like D2 and D4, and I would even argue D4 is way more out of contention than D2. But the parity is returned. We're in a different era. I think I'm very excited to see. How D3 shakes out just because there is so much uncertainty. But I also think there's other variables. Colleyville Covenant is a team that is in the 5 spot right now, but a team that could jump back up to where they were at an 8-4 season last season, if I remember correctly from what we said earlier. Yeah, it's just there's or 8-5 season last season. There's a lot of variables going into it, but I'll tell you this right now: DC, Lubbock Christian, Holy Cross, the 3 names we talked about last year, the 3 names that are returning this year, and the one team that won in D4 last year is returning. If there's one thing you need to know that we've said this whole time is that brands are brands for a reason, and we've said that all throughout SBC, D1, D2, and the point remains still in D3 and D4. Some things will never change. We'll just have parity between the things that'll never change. I think that's the way of saying it.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true, and we will see. if the old adage is correct that the more things change, the more they stay the same as we move in to the 2025 season. But gentlemen, that being said, that is all of the knowledge that we have to present to you on TAPPS Division 3 and TAPPS Division 4, and therefore on all of the TAPPS and SPC 11-man teams playing football this season. And what that means is the season is right around the corner. From when you're seeing this, you will be less than a week away from our week one preview of the season. I feel like we just wrapped up our state coverage last week, but boy, are we back. Boy, are we excited. And we are going to tirelessly bring you the best content in Texas private school football for a fifth consecutive year. You will see Ryan Schroeder and I live on site, as well as Walker Lott at destinations that will be revealed shortly. But gentlemen, as for me, I have been one third of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson, for this episode. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have fantastically been themselves. We will see you in the next episode for the Division One, excuse me, the Week One preview. See you later.